Hello everyone, and welcome back to Conspiracy. November 26th, 1997, the day that the Heaven's Gate cult was found after mass unaliving themselves in a house in California. Founded by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, the Heaven's Gate cult believed that they would ascend to heaven with the help of the Hale-Bopp comet, and that the comet was essentially their ride to heaven. The followers of the cult referred to Marshall as Doe and Bonnie as T. They had first met in 1972 and went on a spiritual journey, identifying themselves as the two witnesses of revelation, attracting a following of several hundred people in the mid-1970s. In 1976, the group stopped recruiting and instituted a monastic lifestyle before their unalives in 1997. Born on May 17, 1931, Marshall Applewhite was born in Texas. The son of a Presbyterian minister, he became very religious as a child. He attended Austin College, where he was active in several student organizations, earning a bachelor's degree in philosophy in 1952. Marshall then enrolled at Union Presbyterian Seminary to study theology, with the hope of becoming a minister. It was around this time that he married Ann Pierce, who he had 2 children with. Early into his studies, he decided to leave the school and pursue a career in music, becoming the music director of a Presbyterian church in North Carolina. In 1954, Marshall was drafted by the United States Army and served in Austria and New Mexico as a member of the Army Signal Corps. He left the military 2 years later in 1956 and enrolled at the University of Colorado, where he received a master's degree in music with focus on musical theater. This didn't last long, however, as he lost his job after pursuing a sexual relationship with a male student. He separated from his wife after the scandal in 1965, and they divorced 3 years later. When he told his parents that he was gay, his father rejected him. After leaving the University of Alabama, Marshall moved to Houston to serve as the chair of the music department at the University of St. Thomas. While there, he became a locally popular singer, serving as the choral director for a nearby church and performing with the Houston Grand Opera. So, while in Houston, it said that he was openly gay, but he pursued a relationship with a young woman, and she actually broke up with him after pressure from her family, and Marshall was devastated. Marshall then resigned from the university, citing depression following the breakup. However, it was speculated that the departure was actually due to another affair with a student. He then moved to New Mexico for a short time, where he operated a delicatessen. He was popular with the customers, but decided to return to Texas later that same year, as his father passed around that time, and it took an emotional toll on him. Bonnie Nettles was born in August 29, 1927, in Houston, Texas, to a Baptist family. As an adult, she left the religion and became a registered nurse. She married Joseph Nettles in December of 1949 and had 4 children with him. The marriage was smooth sailing until 1972, when she held regular seances to contact deceased spirits. She came to believe that a 19th century monk named Brother Francis frequently spoke with her and gave her instructions. She also visited multiple fortune tellers who told her that she would soon meet a mysterious man who was tall with light hair and a fair complexion. The description of the man was fairly close to the appearance of Marshall Applewhite. Marshall and Bonnie met in 1972, and the two quickly became close friends. He later recalled that he felt like he had known her for a long time, concluding that they had met in a past life. Bonnie told Marshall that their meeting had been foretold to her by extraterrestrials, persuading him that he had a divine assignment. Marshall soon began living with Bonnie. Although they were close, their relationship was not a sexual one, which was fulfilling Marshall's longtime wish of having a deep and loving, however platonic, relationship. After Bonnie and Marshall became close, Bonnie's husband divorced her and she lost custody of her kids, at which point Marshall broke off contact with his family as well. There is some debate as to what role Bonnie played in Marshall's life. People believe that she was responsible for reinforcing his emerging delusional beliefs, but some psychiatrists speculate that her influence on him helped him avoid further psychological deterioration. Together they opened a bookstore and a venture called No Place to teach classes on mysticism. They closed both the businesses a short time later. In February of 1973, they decided to travel to teach others about their beliefs and drove throughout the western United States. While traveling, they were often low on funds and often resorted to working odd jobs or donating blood, One of their friends in Houston accepted their teachings, and in May of 1974, she became the first convert. By June of 1974, the two concluded that they had been chosen to fulfill biblical prophecies and that they had been given higher-level minds than other people, completely sane thinking by completely sane individuals. They wrote a pamphlet that described Jesus' reincarnation as a Texan, which was actually a reference to Marshall himself. They also concluded that they were the two witnesses described in the book of Revelation and would refer to themselves as the two or the UFO two. To their shock and dismay, their ideas were poorly received. Can't imagine why. Crazy. In August of 1974, Marshall was arrested in Texas for failing to return a car that he rented in Missouri. He was jailed for 6 months, all while maintaining that he had been divinely authorized to keep the car. After he was released, Bonnie and Marshall resolved to contact extraterrestrials and began seeking like-minded followers. They would publish advertisements for meetings where they recruited disciples who they called crew. Imagine joining a religion and you get called like the crew or whatever. Instead of like, you're my disciples. Yeah, you're crew. Dude didn't start a religion, he started a gang. At the events, they purported to represent beings from another planet called the Next Level, who sought participants for an experiment. The name of the cult at the time wasn't Heaven's Gate. It was Anonymous Sexaholics Celibate Church, but soon was changed to Human Individual Metamorphosis. One of the beliefs of the church was the ancient astronaut hypothesis. This hypothesis claims that extraterrestrials visited Earth in the past and placed humans on Earth with the intent to return and collect a select few. The pair were invited to speak to New Age devotees in California in April of 1975, where they convinced about half of the 50 individuals there to follow them. At a meeting in Oregon on September of 1975, they had further success, where about 30 people left their homes to follow the pair, which drew attention to the media. The media coverage was not positive, with commentators and former members mocking the group and accused the two of brainwashing. People did mention, however, that the two didn't use any pressure tactics, as they only wanted devoted followers. In 1975, Marshall and Bonnie had taken the names of Bo and Peep. They had about 70 followers and saw themselves as shepherds tending a flock. They believed that separation from earthly desires was a prerequisite for ascension to the next level, and emphasized passages in the New Testament in which Jesus spoke about forsaking worldly attachments. Members of the cult were instructed to renounce friends, family, the media, drugs, alcohol, jewelry, facial hair, TV, movies, and sexuality. The followers were also asked to adopt biblical names with specification that it's a 2-syllable name that ended with ODY and had 3 consonants in the first syllable, such as Rakodi, Jamodi, and Lavodi. Are those the only 3 in the Bible? That would be confusing. Have 70 people and 30 of them are named Lavodi. They lived what could be described as a quasi-nomadic lifestyle. They usually stayed at campgrounds and didn't talk about their beliefs. Bonnie and Marshall had ceased having public meetings in 1975 and spent little time teaching doctrine to their converts. The pair also had little contact with their followers at all, many of whom renounced their religion and their allegiance to it. Both Marshall and Bonnie were afraid of being assassinated, and it's thought that his time in prison and the early rejection of his cult contributed to the fear. Later, Marshall and Bonnie explained that the treatment by the press was a form of assassination and had thus fulfilled their assassination prophecy. That's a good way to get out of being assassinated for a prophecy. It was in 1976 that the two had settled on the names Doe and T mentioned earlier. In June of 1976, they recruited their remaining followers in Wyoming by promising a UFO visit, which Bonnie later announced was canceled. Yeah, join our cult. There's going to be a UFO. You joined? UFO's canceled. You guys couldn't behave yourself. UFO's canceled. Members also believed that evil space aliens called Luciferians falsely represented themselves to Earthlings as God and conspired to keep humans from developing. In the late 1970s, the group received a large sum of money. Marshall and Bonnie would have their own house and owned 2 or 3 more houses where their 40 followers lived. The group would keep their windows covered as they were secretive about their lifestyles. The house was a sort of boot camp where they would prepare the members for the next level. It's like a really bad video game. I wonder if they're going to meet Elijah Wood as the guy from Spy Kids 3 on the next level. I wonder if he's there. Bonnie and Marshall had every minute of every day set for the lives of their disciples. Followers who were not committed to this lifestyle were encouraged to leave and were given financial assistance if they left. One night in Texas, the two told their followers that a visitation from an extraterrestrial would commence, and instructed them to wait outside all night. The next morning, the followers were informed that this was merely a test. In 1985, Bonnie passed away from a cancer diagnosis that she had years earlier. Marshall told their followers that she had traveled to the next level because she had too much energy to remain on Earth, abandoning her body to make the journey. He told his followers that he had been left behind by Bonnie because he still had more to learn, and he felt she occupied a higher spiritual role than he did. He also organized a ceremony in which he symbolically married his followers, and this was viewed as an attempt to ensure unity. Marshall began to enforce a hierarchy, teaching that his students needed his guidance as he needed the guidance of the next level, ensuring that their religion would not continue without him. He encouraged his followers to view him as Christ. Bonnie's death caused his views on ascension to change, as he had taught that you could physically ascend from Earth. However, her death forced him to say that ascension could in fact be spiritual. In October of 1996, the group rented a mansion in California. That year, they recorded 2 video messages in which they offered their viewers a last chance to evacuate Earth. It was around this time that they learned of the Hale-Bopp comet, and Marshall believed that Bonnie was on a spaceship trailing the comet and that she would join up with them. He told his followers that the government was attempting to suppress the craft. In late March of 1997, the group isolated themselves and recorded farewell statements. Many members praised Marshall in their final messages. Marshall also recorded a video shortly before his death in which he termed the suicides the final exit of the group and said, "We do, in all honesty, hate this world." It's believed that he chose suicide because he said that the group would ascend during his lifetime, so appointing a successor would have been unfeasible. March 22nd, 1997 is when the suicides began. Members took barbiturates and alcohol, then placed bags over their heads. They wore Nike shoes and black uniforms with patches that read, "Heaven's Gate Away Team." Marshall was one of the last 4 to die. 3 assistants helped him commit suicide and then killed themselves. An anonymous tip led the sheriff's department to search the mansion when they found 39 bodies on March 26th. It was the largest group suicide involving U.S. citizens since the 1978 mass suicide in Jonestown. A topic for another day. The Heaven's Gate website is still up, and honestly, it looks pretty much like you would expect it to. There is a contact email at the bottom, and a page titled "Our Position Against Suicide," which makes me wonder if there are still people who run the site, like modern day Heaven's Gate cultists. It is very interesting that the site's still up and has contact information. Thank you everyone for watching this video on the Heaven's Gate cults. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a little something. I truly do appreciate each and every one of you for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Hit that like button if you liked the video. And I'll see you guys in the next one.